Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here. Now today we're going to be doing something a little bit different here, and I'm going to be actually talking about talking to all the beginner birders out there and bird watchers about some of the terminology and stuff that you may encounter along the way. So we're going to be going over quite a few of them today in no particular order. So let's go ahead and get started here. Sparkbird. Now this is a term a lot of people when they start out birding and stuff. Sparkbird is basically the bird or birds that most inspired you to really take up birding. You know, ones like I have as sparkbirds are like pileated woodpecker is a good one just because of their impressive size and just the overall red mohawk they have. And then, you know, they're about the size of a crow, and they're also, despite being fairly big, pretty elusive in the woodland. And you know, they're giant. I call it the crazy clown, killer clown call is what I call it, but their classic call that they do is unmistakable, and it leaves an impression on you. And then another bird I have as a sparkbird would be like a great blue heron, you know, simply for the wingspan of them. When you're so used to tiny little songbirds and everything, you know, or your robins or your cardinals or sparrows, and then you see this giant wading bird with this impressive wingspan. And you got to remember, this is early on, of course, so definitely, you know, left an impression on me and still does to this day. But it's definitely a bird that, you know, kind of it sparked an interest. That's literally what it means by sparkbird, is that it just sparks an interest in what you do. So the next one here is lifebird. This is simply put like a different species that you may have never encountered before. And this is your first time seeing it or hearing it or whatever it may be, or both perhaps. And so not everyone chooses to keep you know, lifebirds on a life list, which I'll get to in a moment here, but it is kind of fun to challenge yourself, I think, to really keep a life list and to see how many lifebirds you could get. Simply birds first time you've seen in your life. So as I said, life list, that is literally just a list of life birds that you may have. You know, this is up to you, of course, if you want to keep it and record one and keep track of it. Some people simply forgo all that stuff, and they just simply either enjoy the birds or, you know, take photos of them, or, you know, focus more on that kind of stuff. But it's really just up to you. You know, I keep one because I liked all the stats and everything that go along with it, and it's kind of enjoyable to me. So yards and backyard lists. This is literally just a life list, you know, that's kind of centered down to a specific region or area. There's even county lists where you just literally are, like, if you're here in the United States, you have a county list of the different areas, and you can see all this on eBird, which is also another thing I'll get to here in a moment. But, you know, a backyard list, it can be kind of fun. Definitely if you've plant native plants, of course, or have, you know, bird seed and bird feeders put up, and, you know, water sources, or even nesting houses or habitat. It can be really fun to just see what kind of birds you can get, you know, right outside your door. And I always recommend that kind of stuff, of course, but it could be really fun to do that sort of thing. So as I just mentioned, eBird, you've probably heard about this. It's a app, it's a website, it's a software, and really it's just a whole community centered around birding and keeping data for, you know, scientists to predict migrations, population numbers, and just the overall health of avian wildlife. Now, anyone can use eBird. It's definitely got a little bit of a learning curve maybe at first if you're not familiar with how to use it, but simply put, it's just a way to keep like checklists or tallies of how many species and what numbers and whatnot at a given location, you know, inputting the time of day, maybe even like the weather, how far you hiked or walked, were you like stationary, were you kind of like intentionally set out to look at birds, or was it just a complete accident and you happen to see one and you want to record it? So eBird's a very great tool, I think. It's definitely an excellent resource. There's a reason why millions of people use it, and you know, it's a big part of what I do. And I always kind of like think about it and chuckle a little bit of like, if I didn't have eBird, I'd be years behind where I am now because of just the wealth of knowledge and resource that it is to you know, look at sightings that other people report, and just learn more things about your area especially, and even just the new hot spots you might encounter, of course, or would like to check out. So definitely a great resource, and I'd highly recommend it. So much in the same way with doing checklists and everything, there's a term called listing. That is, as it sounds, merely listing out birds, more so than just being, I guess, enjoying the moment and really appreciating from what they are. Some people, and I'm guilty of this too, of course, get so caught up in the checklist and, just recording the number of species and making it almost like a goal or a challenge to get however many you can, that they kind of just lose sight of maybe why we fall in love with birds in the first place. And so that's a really important thing, I think, to distinguish between, it's not wrong or bad, of course, to keep a checklist of species you may see or hear, but it's also important to, appreciate even the common species in your area. Like my year-round residents are, like Carolina chickadee, northern cardinal, American robin, just to name a few, or even Canada geese and mallard ducks. These are ones that I see everywhere almost. It's pretty close to that at least. And while it may seem easy to kind of gloss them over for something that's like a migratory, sandpiper or a warbler or something, it's definitely worthwhile to appreciate them for being life on this earth, literally. So the next term is vagrant, and that is literally just a species that's way outside of its range. So a good example of a vagrant would be in my area of Ohio here in the United States. We actually had a pair of pink flamingos that are usually in the deep south, like Florida and onwards, and they actually hung out here in Ohio for I think like a week or two. Definitely a lot more of a vagrant species that's way outside of its range, but definitely a cool find if you so choose to see it. You've probably heard the term like chasing a rarity or chasing a bird. Usually, I'm not going to quote me on this, but usually it doesn't mean you're literally chasing the bird, but it is a kind of action, I guess, to go set out to see the bird. And some people, they get really into it where they will drive hours and go many miles or whatever it takes just to see a rarity. I've definitely had a few situations where I've done that, but I would just say as a recommendation is that if there is a vagrant or a rarity in your area, I would try to go the same day, if not the next day. But you're not always guaranteed, obviously, that that's going to happen, and so you want to really make sure you can get out there if that's what you're set on doing. Now, there's a certain, subset of bird watchers and birders called twitchers. Now, I don't really use this term often because it just kind of sounds weird to me, I guess, but twitching is literally just a extreme form of birding where people are literally so obsessed with just nothing will stop them. They will, unfortunately at least, trespass. They'll do, and trample over foliage or vegetation or sensitive areas. They will literally do anything they can just to even just see the bird, I guess, or get a photo of it to share. And speaking of sharing, they might not even share the record of it, at least for a while, or if at all. So unfortunately, it's kind of got a negative connotation to it. Once again, I'm not perfect by any means, but I've definitely had some times where I get too hung up, I guess, on the hunt, as it were, for a bird. But twitching is definitely a hotly contested debate. Now, there's many different terms for binoculars. You can call it bins, you can call it binos, binocs. They all mean the same. It's just binoculars. I usually just say bins, as in I'm going to pull my bins out of my bag to go look at something. And there's also another term called digiscoping. That's merely if you have a spotting scope, which is not really required when you're starting out. But if you so choose to get a spotting scope, which I would recommend eventually, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of scanning of let's say waterfowl at a lake or whatnot, or even leading tours or workshops. I would say digiscoping is like using your phone screen or your camera, that is, to capture a photograph, an image of what goes through your spotting scope. So that can be very useful, of course, for, like I said, with eBird checklists, because you can add media to them. So it's definitely a nice resource to have. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. That's just a handful of terms that you may commonly hear when you're out birding, especially in groups, in case you are on a group hike or whatnot. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And yeah, let me know if you want more videos like this, just some like beginning, helpful tips or whatnot. And look forward to seeing you out there.